Emotions are a part of ethics. We can't completely disconnect the principles we want to be guided by from the feelings we experience when someone is living up to those principles or violating them. But does emotion help us act more ethically? I'm recording this not long after the 2024 election, when anger has been a dominant tone both of President elect Trump's campaign and of many people's reaction to his victory. Some might say that anger, in particular, is an emotion that gets in the way of the self control we need to deliberate on decisions or choose a path of action. Too much anger, of course, does that. I am connecting this topic to the parasha called Lech Lecha, the Torah reading which introduces us to Avraham, whose initial name was Avram. I'm struck by two types of midrashim that suggest a backstory to Avraham and fill in imaginatively what the Torah doesn't tell us about the first 75 years of his life. One midrash imagines Avram as a child. In the version in Breshit Rabbah, his father Terach has a store where people buy figurines of the gods, and one day he leaves young Avram in charge alone. One of the things Avram does is to smash almost all the idols except one, and he places a bowl with a dish of flour in front of the largest one, the one that he leaves remaining, along with a stick in its hand. When his father returns and asks what happened, Avram says that a fight broke out among the idols over who would get the offering, and the big one smashed all the other ones in order to take it. Terach brings Avram before the king, who eventually tries to punish Avram by putting him in a fiery furnace from which he miraculously emerges. Compare this midrash to what Rabbi Moses Maimonides teaches about young Avram. He imagines Avram as a boy who would observe the night sky and wonder about its patterns, who gradually on his own formulates the thought for himself of a single mover of everything. He comes to believe that everyone around him is in error, but Avram pours his strength into his arguments with people, and he smashes idols as a calculated teaching technique and to save people from worshiping the idols. These two versions of Avram's backstory have very different emotional tones. In Breshit Rabbah, there is, at the very least, a climate of anger in the stories told about the many gods and how they act, and in the approach of a king to a dissenter. Maybe Avram's smashing in the store was reflecting that around him, or maybe he absorbed that in his early life and had to leave in order to put it behind him. In Maimonides' version, the tone is contemplative. Smashing idols isn't anger, but a controlled display for teaching purposes. The people might respond to it viscerally, but Avram himself never loses his self-control. So, can anger be a moral emotion? I think both versions of Avram's backstory tell us that anger can be part of a moral life. But anger is only significant when it is activated by a righteous cause, and even then there is a danger of the anger taking over. In the best case, anger helps us activate our energy for what is right, but the anger itself has to be modulated and converted into something else, particularly to leave room for our own deliberation and for gathering community around what is good. No good ideas and no concerted action for good can be built on anger alone.